A girl walks through crowds, hiding her hunger beneath the hope of a simple ticket. Upon seeing a father begging for help for his sick child, she felt her heart decide before reason. She hands over the ticket without hesitation, unaware that someone is watching her closely. If this beautiful story of overcoming and love interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Continuing. The sun had not yet fully risen when Emily woke up on her small mattress on the floor. The wooden house in Eastside Heights, on the east side of Chicago, creaked with the cold, early morning wind. At 7 years old, she already knew that days started early, especially when there was something important ahead, and today was the most important day of her life. Careful not to wake Grandma Grace, who was sleeping in the only bedroom of the house, Emily got up and walked to the small kitchen table. There it was, stored inside an empty glass coffee jar, her ticket to the charity event at Lincoln Stadium. The yellowed paper trembled in her small hands as she held it against the weak light coming through the curtainless window. "My little granddaughter, you woke up early today." Grandma Grace's hoarse voice echoed through the room. The 68-year-old woman appeared at the door, wearing the same faded blue dress she had worn for years. Her brown eyes, though tired from life's hardships, shone with tenderness as she looked at the girl. "Grandma, today's the day everything will change for both of us." Emily ran to her, showing the ticket as if it were a treasure. "Aunt Connie said that inside the stadium there are rich people, important people, who help poor children. She said if I tell our story right, they might give us a better house, food every day, and even get you to a doctor to treat that ugly cough." Grandma Grace smiled sadly and caressed her granddaughter's face. She knew the girl had built a fantasy around that event, but she didn't have the heart to disillusion the only joy Emily had. The ticket had been raffled in a campaign at the neighborhood church, and the girl had been talking about it for weeks, as if it were a pass to a magical world. My love, the adult world is complicated. Those important people who will be there, they have many problems to solve. I don't know if they'll have time to listen to a small girl like you." "But Grandma, I know how to speak nicely. Miss Lucas always says I speak well, that I have good ideas. And I'll tell them how hard you work collecting cans, how we share bread when there's not enough, how you sing to me even when your back hurts." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "They'll understand, Grandma. They have to understand." The two had breakfast in silence, hot water with sugar and a piece of stale bread that Grandma Grace had gotten from Mr. Joe's bakery the day before. Emily ate slowly, savoring every crumb, while mentally planning what she would say at the event. She had rehearsed her speech hundreds of times in the broken bathroom mirror. When it was time to leave, Emily put on her best clothes, a pink dress that had once belonged to her cousin Leah, now 3 sizes too big for her, and a pair of rubber sandals that Grandma Grace had bought on sale at the market. The dress was patched in some places with different fabric scraps, but she wore it with pride as if it were a princess dress. "Grandma, aren't you coming with me?" "Oh, little one, that place is for fancy people. Your grandmother would be out. Tough place there. Besides, I need to go to work. The cans don't collect themselves." Grandma Grace hugged her granddaughter tightly. "But you go, tell our story, and then tell me everything in detail, okay?" The journey to the stadium was long. Emily had to take 2 buses, using the coins that Grandma Grace had saved during the week. On the first bus, she sat next to a well-dressed woman who wrinkled her nose at the sight of the girl. On the second, she stood, holding tightly to the metal bar protecting the ticket inside the pocket of her dress. The closer she got to Lincoln Stadium, the harder her heart beat. Through the bus windows, she saw the houses getting bigger, more beautiful, with well-maintained gardens and imported cars in the garages. It was as if she were entering another world, a world she only knew from television. Getting off the bus, Emily stood for a few minutes contemplating the immensity of the stadium. She had never seen anything so large, so imposing. Hundreds of well-dressed people were walking toward the main gates, men in suits and ties, women in elegant dresses with expensive purses, cars with private drivers dropping off passengers at the VIP entrance. She took a deep breath, checked once more that the ticket was still in her pocket and began to walk. Her steps were small but determined. Each step brought her closer to what she believed was her only chance for change. At the stadium entrance, the movement was intense. Uniformed security guards were checking tickets, organization staff were guiding guests, and a small crowd was gathering near the gates. Emily positioned herself in line, trying to look bigger, more confident, as she had practiced at home. "Next!" shouted one of the security guards. Emily stepped forward, but her legs trembled. The man was huge, with an unfriendly face. "Ticket and ID?" "I don't have ID. I'm only 7 years old." Emily extended the ticket with trembling hands. The security guard frowned. "Unaccompanied children cannot enter. Where are your parents?" "I don't have parents. I do, but they left when I was little. I live only with my grandmother, but she couldn't come because she was working collecting cans to save money to buy our lunch." The words tumbled out of Emily's mouth, as if she wanted to explain her whole life at once. The security guard looked at her with an expression that mixed irritation and pity. Other guests in line began to complain about the delay. "Look, girl, that's not how it works. You need a guardian." "But I have the ticket. It was raffled at my neighborhood church. Aunt Connie said I could come." Tears began to form in Emily's eyes. Her entire dream was crumbling there at the stadium door. It was then that a commotion in the crowd caught attention. On the opposite side of the entrance, a man of about 40 with rumpled clothes and desperate eyes was holding a boy of about 5 years old in his arms. The child was visibly ill, with pale skin and labored breathing. Please, someone needs to help me," the man shouted to whoever would listen. "My son is very sick. I need to speak with Dr. Edward Montgomery. I know he's in here. He can save my son." 2 security guards approached him. "Sir, do you have a ticket?" "No, I don't. But you don't understand. My son needs urgent surgery that costs $200,000. Dr. Montgomery is our only hope. He has an institute that helps children. Please let me in just for 5 minutes." "I'm sorry, sir. Without a ticket, there are no exceptions." The security guards began to move the man away from the entrance. The desperation in that father's voice echoed throughout the place. Emily, who had stopped crying to observe the scene, felt something strange in her chest, a sensation she couldn't explain, but that made her walk slowly toward that man and his sick child. The boy in his father's arms opened his eyes for a moment and looked directly at Emily. They were brown eyes, large and sad, similar to hers when she looked in the mirror on the hardest days. At that moment, something clicked in the girl's mind. She thought of Grandma Grace working under the scorching sun collecting cans to earn a few coins. She thought of the nights they slept hugging because they didn't have enough blankets. She thought of her grandmother's persistent cough, which never stopped because she didn't have money to see a doctor. But she also thought of that boy, who was even worse off than her. At least she had health, had the strength to dream, to fight. That child in his father's arms seemed to have not even that. Her legs moved almost by themselves. Before she could think twice, Emily was standing in front of the desperate man. "Sir." The man looked down and saw the small girl, with her patched dress and worn sandals. "What is it, little one?" Emily took a deep breath. Her hands trembled when she took the ticket out of her pocket. "You can use mine." Silence settled for a few seconds. The man looked at the paper in the girl's hands, then at her face, trying to understand what was happening. "Girl, this ticket is yours. You came all the way here to use it. But your son needs it more than I do." Emily's voice came out thin but firm. "I can wait. He can't." The man knelt down, still with his son in his arms, becoming level with Emily. "Are you sure about what you're doing, little one? This ticket might be important. For you too." Emily looked once more at the sick boy, then at her own ticket. For a second she hesitated. She thought of all she had dreamed, of all the hopes she had placed in that piece of paper. But when she saw the boy cough weak spasms in his father's lap, she had no more doubts. "I'm sure." Emily held out the ticket to the man. "My grandma always says that when we can help someone, we help. It doesn't matter if we're left with nothing." The man took the ticket with trembling hands. For a few seconds he just stood there, looking at that small girl who had just given up her only treasure. "What's your name?" "Emily. Emily Wilson." I'm Robert Anderson, and this is my son, Gabriel. The man pointed to the boy in his arms. Emily, I don't know how to thank you. You just gave us a chance at a new life. Gabriel opened his eyes again and managed to sketch a weak smile for Emily. She smiled back and gently caressed the boy's hand. Hi, Gabriel. You're going to get better, okay? Your daddy will find the right people in there. Robert took off his son's white hospital bracelet with the boy's name and some medical codes. Emily, I want you to have this. It's for you to remember that what you did today saved a life. One day when you're grown up, you'll understand the size of your heart. Emily took the bracelet and put it on her own wrist. It was much too big for her, but she held it tight. Everything will be all right, Mr. Robert. I have faith. The security guards who had witnessed the entire scene were moved by the girl's gesture. One of them, a large black man named Walter, discreetly wiped his eyes. Girl, you just did the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. You can go in, sir. Take your son. Robert kissed Emily's forehead. I'll never forget you, little one. I promise that one day I'll find you to thank you properly. Emily waved as Robert and Gabriel entered the stadium. Only after they disappeared. From view did she feel the weight of what she had done. There was no more ticket, no more chance to enter the event, no more hope of finding someone who could help her and Grandma Grace. The cold of the afternoon was beginning to tighten. Emily adjusted her dress and began to walk back to the bus stop. The coins in her pocket would barely cover the fare back. She would have to walk a few more blocks to save money. During the journey, she looked out the bus window and thought about what she would tell Grandma Grace. How would she explain that she had given the ticket to a stranger? How would she describe the strange feeling she had in her chest when making that decision? When she arrived home, it was already getting dark. Grandma Grace was sitting at the door of the house, separating cans into different plastic bags. Seeing her granddaughter, she smiled hopefully. So, my princess, how was the event? Did you manage to talk to anyone important? Emily sat down beside her grandmother and remained silent for a few minutes. Grandma Grace noticed that something was different. What is it, little one? Did something go wrong? Grandma, I gave my ticket to a man who had a very sick son. He needed to get into the stadium to ask for help to save the boy. The words came out softly, almost like a whisper. Grandma Grace stopped sorting the cans and looked fixedly at her granddaughter. You did what? The boy was very bad off, Grandma. Worse than I've ever been. And his father was desperate, just like I get when you cough a lot at night and I'm scared. Emily showed the bracelet on her wrist. He gave me this as thanks. To what? Emily's surprise, Grandma Grace wasn't angry. Instead, she pulled her granddaughter into a strong, tight hug. My girl, my big-hearted girl. You're not upset with me? Upset? I'm proud, very proud. Grandma Grace's eyes filled with tears. Do you know why your parents named you Emily? Because Emily means industrious and striving. And you, my granddaughter, have just proven that you have a heart that strives to do good. That night, the two ate the last remains of rice and beans they had at home. Emily told all the details of the day, how big the stadium was, how well-dressed the people were, how Gabriel's sad eyes looked like hers. Grandma Grace listened to me, every word attentively, as if it were the most important story in the world. Grandma, do you think Gabriel got better? I'm sure he did, little one. When we do something good from the heart, God always finds a way to make everything work out. The following days were even more difficult than usual. The money had completely run out, and Grandma Grace had to ask neighbors for help to get some basic supplies. Ms. Clara, who lived next door, lent half a pound of rice. Mr. Anthony, from the house in front, gave some bananas that were too ripe to sell at the market. Emily tried not to think too much about what could have happened if she had entered the stadium. Maybe someone really would have listened to her. Maybe someone would have sympathized with her and her grandmother's story. But whenever these thoughts came, she looked at Gabriel's bracelet and remembered the sad eyes of the boy. She knew she had done the right thing. At school, which operated only 3 times a week due to a lack of teachers, Emily told her teacher, Ms. Lucas, what had happened. The teacher, a young and dedicated woman who lived in the neighborhood herself, was moved by the story. Emily, do you know what you did? You saved a life. That's more important than anything you could have gotten inside that stadium. But what if someone in there could have helped me and my grandma, teacher? My dear, there's something called destiny. Sometimes we think we've lost an opportunity, but actually we were gaining something much greater. You'll see. It was a Wednesday morning when everything changed. Emily was playing in the yard with rag dolls she had sewn herself when she heard a loud knock at the door. Grandma Grace, who was hanging clothes on the clothesline, went to answer. "Good morning, Ma'am. Are you Emily Wilson's grandmother?" The voice was male, educated, different from the voices normally heard in that neighborhood. Emily ran to her grandmother and hid behind her legs, peeking at who was at the door. It was Robert, the same man to whom she had given the ticket, but he was completely different. He wore a well-pressed dark suit, shiny leather shoes, and drove a black car that drew the attention of all the neighbors. In his hands, he carried a bouquet of yellow flowers and a white envelope. "Mr. Robert," Emily emerged from behind her grandmother and ran toward the man. "How is Gabriel?" Robert knelt down and hugged the girl. "Gabriel is well, Emily. He's cured, and all this is thanks to you." His eyes filled with tears. "You saved my son." Grandma Grace watched the scene without completely understanding what was happening. "Sir, are you the father of the boy that my granddaughter—" "Yes, ma'am, it's me, and I've come here to thank you, and also to propose something very important." Robert stood up and handed the flowers to Grandma Grace. "May I come in? I have a lot to tell you both." The three sat in the small living room of the house. Robert looked around, noting the simplicity of the place. Peeling walls, old furniture, an ancient television that seemed not to work. But he also noticed something more important, the love that hovered in that home, the dignity with which those two women faced their difficulties. "Emily, I need to tell you something. I'm not just Gabriel's father. I am Robert Anderson, owner of Anderson Stadiums, including Lincoln Stadium. I'm also president of the Hope Institute, an organization that builds schools and hospitals for children in vulnerable situations." Emily's eyes widened. "You're rich?" Robert laughed. "Yes, I am. But all my money would be worthless if it weren't for the generous heart of a 7-year-old girl. Do you know what happened after I entered the stadium with your ticket?" They both shook their heads no. "I found Dr. Edward Montgomery, one of the best pediatric surgeons in the country. I explained Gabriel's situation, and he immediately offered to perform the surgery for free. More than that, he was so impressed with your story, Emily, that he decided to create a special fund to help other children like Gabriel." Grandma Grace was open-mouthed. "My granddaughter did all that." "Your granddaughter did much more than that." Robert opened the envelope he brought in his hands. "Emily, you gave me the most valuable thing you had without thinking twice. Now I want to give back. I want to offer you a place at St. Benedict Academy, the best private school in Chicago. There you will have school supplies, uniform, 3 meals a day, transportation, and the best teachers in the city." Emily looked at her grandmother, then back at Robert. "And my grandma? I can't leave my grandma alone." "You won't. I also want to offer your grandmother a new house in the neighborhood of her choice, near the school. A house with 3 bedrooms, a yard and everything paid for, plus a complete health plan for her to take care of that cough and anything else she might need." The silence that settled in the room was interrupted only by the sound of Grandma Grace beginning to cry. They were tears of joy, of relief, of gratitude. Emily couldn't fully process what she was hearing, but she knew something magical was happening. "Mr. Robert, is all of this really true?" "Not a dream." Emily held tightly to Gabriel's bracelet, as if it were a charm that could make all of that real. "It's true, little one, but there's one condition." Robert smiled. "You need to promise that you'll study hard, that you'll take advantage of all the opportunities that will appear, and that you'll never forget where you came from. Can you promise?" I promise everything." Emily jumped into Robert's lap. "But can I see Gabriel? I want to know if he's really okay." "Of course you can. Actually, he's waiting for me in the car. He didn't want to come in here because he's shy, but he really wanted to meet the girl who saved his life. The three left the house. In the back seat of the black car, Gabriel was sitting with a stuffed animal in his arms. When he saw Emily approaching, his thin face lit up with a huge smile. He was very different from the pale and sick boy she had seen at the stadium. Now he had color in his face, bright eyes and contagious energy. "Hi, Emily, it's me, Gabriel. Daddy told me you lent me your magic ticket." Emily laughed at the way the boy expressed himself. "It wasn't a magic ticket, Gabriel. It was just a normal ticket, but I'm glad you're well. Daddy said you're my heart sister now, is that true?" Emily looked at Robert, who nodded affirmatively. "It's true, Gabriel, we're heart siblings." The two children hugged through the car window, and at that moment Robert knew he had made the right decision. That girl had saved more than his son's life. She had saved his family's soul. A week later, a change began to transform Emily and Grandma Grace's lives. Robert fulfilled all his promises. The new house was in Maple Hills, a middle-class area of Chicago. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a large kitchen with all appliances, and a yard with fruit trees. On moving day, Grandma Grace cried as she packed her few clothes into suitcases borrowed from neighbors. "Little one, isn't this too much pride? We've always managed on our own." "Grandma, Mr. Robert said it's not charity. He said it's justice. That when someone does something good, the world has to give back." Emily helped her grandmother fold the dish towels. "And besides, now I can really study, and someday I can help other people, just like Mr. Robert is helping us." St. Benedict Academy was an imposing building with well-maintained gardens, a gigantic library, science laboratories, covered sports courts, and even an Olympic-sized swimming pool. On her first day of school, Emily arrived in a new uniform, a backpack full of school supplies, and her heart beating fast with nervousness. The principal, Ms. Helen, an elegant lady with grey hair, personally received Emily. "Welcome to our school, Emily. Mr. Robert told us your story. We are very honored to have you with us." "Principal, I've never studied in such a beautiful school. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up with the classes." "My dear, intelligence has nothing to do with the size of the school or the color of the uniform. It has to do with curiosity, dedication, and willingness to learn. And from what we know, you have plenty of those qualities." The second grade class consisted of 22 children. On the first day, teacher Ms. Marcia, a newly graduated young woman in pedagogy, introduced Emily to her classmates. "Everyone, we have a new friend. This is Emily, and she has a very special story to tell." But Emily was too shy to speak. She sat at the desk in the back and spent the whole morning just observing. Everything was new, the way the teachers spoke, the colorful books, the classmates with expensive shoes and brand-name backpacks. She felt as if she had fallen onto another planet. At recess, she stayed alone under a tree, playing with Gabriel's bracelet. That's when a girl with curly hair approached. "Hi, you're the new Emily, right? I'm Marina. Do you want to play with me?" I don't know how to play the games here." "What nonsense. A game is a game anywhere. Come, I'll introduce you to the group." Marina was the daughter of a construction business owner, but she had a sweet and welcoming heart. She introduced Emily to other classmates: Peter, son of doctors, who loved soccer; Camilla, daughter of lawyers, who knew how to play the piano; Lucas, son of university professors, who drew amazing superheroes. "Emily, tell us what your old school was like," asked Peter while kicking a ball. Emily hesitated. How to explain that in her old school sometimes there were no teachers, that the books were so old that the pages fell apart, that many times she shared her lunch with classmates who came with nothing from home. It was different, smaller, simpler. "Different how?" insisted Camilla with genuine curiosity. It was Marina who saved the situation. "Guys, each school has its own way. The important thing is that now we're all friends here." In the first weeks, Emily dedicated herself to her studies with an intensity that impressed all the teachers. She arrived early, stayed late, did all her assignments with care. She discovered that she loved math, that she had a facility with English, and that science fascinated her. During the writing classes, Ms. Marcia noticed that Emily had a special talent for storytelling. "Emily, your essays are very emotional. You write with your heart." "It's because I have a lot to tell, teacher." "How about you tell one of those stories to the class?" "We have a project called Stories That Inspire. Each student tells a meaningful experience from their life." Emily was nervous about the idea, but she accepted the challenge. For a week she wrote and rewrote her story. She wanted to tell about the day of the ticket, but in a way that her classmates could understand. The day of the presentation, Emily was the last to speak. She went to the front of the class with trembling hands and a choked voice. "I want to tell you about the day I discovered that giving is more important than receiving." And then, with touching sincerity, she told about the ticket, about Sick, Gabriel, about the decision to give up her dream to help an unknown child. She told about the bracelet she still wore every day, about how she had felt sad on the way back home, and about how everything had transformed afterward. When she finished, the room was in complete silence. Some classmates had tears in their eyes. Ms. Marcia needed a few minutes to be able to speak. "Emily, thank you for sharing this incredible story with us. You taught us something very important today, that kindness always comes back to us in some way." Peter raised his hand. "Emily, can I ask a question?" "Yes." "Weren't you regretful? I mean, you could be talking with important people inside the stadium, getting good things for yourself." Emily thought for a few seconds before answering. "You know, Peter, I could have entered the stadium and maybe nobody would want to listen to me, or maybe someone would listen and couldn't help me. But when I saw Gabriel sick, I was sure that he needed it more than I did. And in the end, by helping him, I ended up being helped too. But even if I hadn't been helped, I still believe I did the right thing." Marina began to applaud, and soon the whole room applauded with her. That day, Emily was no longer the new, shy girl. She was the girl who had taught a life lesson to colleagues who had much more money, but perhaps had never thought about what it really meant to help someone. After class, Ms. Marcia called Emily to talk. "Emily, I'd like to speak with your grandmother and Mr. Robert about an idea I had." "What idea, teacher?" "Your story is very powerful. I think other children could learn from it. How about we organize an event here at the school for you to tell your story to more people? An event just about my story?" "Yes, we could call it The Power of Generosity. You could speak to other classes, and even to the parents of the students. What do you think?" Emily was excited about the idea, but also worried. "Teacher, what if people think I'm bragging?" "My dear, telling your story is not bragging. It's inspiring other people to do good. There's a big difference." That night at home, Emily told Grandma Grace about the teacher's proposal. The two were in the new kitchen, preparing a dinner with ingredients that were once unattainable luxuries: chicken, rice, fresh beans, salad with tomato and lettuce. "Grandma, do you think I should accept speaking at the event?" Grandma Grace stopped stirring the beans and looked lovingly at her granddaughter. Do you know the difference between a good person and a special person?" "I don't know, Grandma." "A good person does good and keeps it to themselves. Special person does good and teaches others to do it too. You, my little granddaughter, were born to be special." Emily smiled and hugged her grandmother. Outside the kitchen window, she saw the garden of the new house with its colorful flowers swaying in the wind. She thought about how quickly her life had changed, but she also thought about all the children who were still going through the difficulties she had gone through. "Grandma, when I grow up, I want to have an organization like Mr. Roberts, too. Help boys and girls who live in small houses, who are hungry, who don't have good schools." "And you will, little one. I'm sure you will." That night, Emily slept holding Gabriel's bracelet, dreaming about the school event and about all the children her story could inspire. She didn't know yet, but that would be just the beginning of a much greater journey. The auditorium of St. Benedict Academy had never received so many people. There were parents, teachers, students from all grades, and even some people from the community who had heard about the Power of Generosity event. Emily peeked through the side curtain of the stage, feeling her heart beating so hard it seemed like it would come out of her mouth. "Calm down, child. Take a deep breath." Grandma Grace held her granddaughter's hand, trying to convey tranquility. She was elegant, wearing a navy blue dress that Robert had bought for the occasion. Remember what I always tell you, speak from the heart, and the right words will come out on their own. On the other side of the stage, Robert was adjusting the microphone. He would be the first to speak, introducing Emily and telling the story. From his perspective as a desperate father who was saved by a child's kindness, Gabriel, now completely recovered and full of energy, was playing in the front row next to his mother, Carla, a blonde woman with a sweet smile who had become very close to Grandma Grace. "Good afternoon, everyone," Robert's voice echoed through the auditorium. "My name is Robert Anderson, and I'm here to tell a story that changed my family forever. 3 months ago, my son Gabriel was very sick. The doctors said he needed urgent surgery that would cost a fortune. I had the money, but I had no way to reach the right doctor at the right time." The audience paid attention to every word. Robert continued, "That's when a 7-year-old girl, who had never seen me in her life, who lived in a humble house with her grandmother, who had saved her money to buy a ticket to an event that she believed could change her life. This girl decided to give me her ticket because she thought I needed it more than she did." Emotional murmurs began to spread through the audience. That girl is Emily Wilson, who is now a student at this school, and she is here to tell, in her own words, what happened that day at Lincoln Stadium. Emily took a deep breath and went up on stage. Her classmates, seated in the front rows, applauded enthusiastically. Marina shouted, "Go, Em!" and Peter gave a thumbs up. "Hi, everyone." Emily's voice came out soft at first, but gained strength as she felt more comfortable. "I wanted to start by talking about my grandmother, who's over there." She pointed to Grandma Grace, who waved timidly. "My grandmother taught me that we always have something to give, even when it seems like we have nothing." And then Emily told her story, but this time she went beyond the facts. She talked about her feelings, about what was going through her mind on that cold morning when she woke up thinking her life was going to change. She described the fear she felt when she saw the security guard saying she couldn't enter. She explained what she felt in her chest when she saw sick Gabriel in his father's arms. "I kept looking at that boy, and it was as if I was seeing myself when I was sad or afraid. The difference was that he was really sick, and I was just waiting for someone to help me, waiting for things to get better on their own. But there I saw that I could do something. I could help." A woman in the audience began to cry discreetly. Several children were hypnotized by the story, and some parents whispered among themselves about how rarely they saw such maturity in such a young child. When I gave my ticket to Mr. Robert, I wasn't thinking I would get something in return. I was thinking that maybe Gabriel would get better, and that would already be a good thing I had done in my life. Emily paused and looked directly at Gabriel, who was smiling at her from the front row. "And you know what happened? Gabriel got better. And then I discovered something very important. When we do good without thinking about reward, the reward comes in a way we never imagined." The audience erupted in applause. Some people stood up. Robert and Grandma Grace were openly crying. Principal Helen, who was watching from the side of the stage, was impressed with the naturalness and wisdom of that girl. "Now I study at this beautiful school, live in a good house with my grandmother, and have incredible friends." Emily smiled at her classmates. "But do you know what the coolest part of all this is? It's that now I can help other people too. Last week, my class and I collected 50 pounds of food for a daycare center in the neighborhood where I used to live. And the feeling of delivering that food was just like the feeling of delivering my ticket to Mr. Robert." A 5th-grade boy raised his hand. "Emily, can I ask a question?" "Sure." "How do we know when to help someone? Like, how do we know if the person really needs it or is just pretending?" Emily thought for a few seconds. "You know, I think we know by the eyes. A person's eyes tell the truth. Gabriel's eyes were asking for help in a way that couldn't be faked. And another thing, even if sometimes we're mistaken and help someone who didn't need it as much, we still did a good thing. It's better to help and be mistaken than not to help and lose the chance to save someone." The response provoked more applause. A mother in the audience commented to her friend beside her, "This girl is 8 years old and is already wiser than many adults I know." After the presentation, many people approached to talk with Emily. A woman named Dolores, who worked at an NGO that served underprivileged children, was particularly interested. "Emily, how about you visit our organization? We have many children there who would love to hear your story." "Can I really?" "Of course, and who knows, maybe you'll give us ideas on how we can better help these children. Sometimes the person who has gone through a situation is the one who best understands how to solve it." Robert approached the conversation. "Ms. Dolores, if Emily wants to participate, I can support logistically, transportation, materials, whatever is necessary. Mr. Robert, could Gabriel come along? I think the children would like to see that he really got better." "Great idea, little one. Gabriel will love it." In the days following the event, Emily's story resonated far beyond the school. Ms. Marcia had recorded the presentation and shared it with some fellow educators. A journalist from PBS learned about the story and approached the school to do a special report. "Emily, we'd like to film a small documentary about your story. What do you think?" The girl was excited but also concerned. "Will it really be on television?" "It will, and it can inspire many other children all across America." "Then I want to, but can I ask for one thing? I want them to also show the daycare center in my old neighborhood. Ms. Connie, who works there, always said she needed help, but nobody knew about her work." The journalist smiled. "Deal, we'll show the daycare center too." The filming of the documentary was done over the course of a week. The cameras followed Emily at home, at school, on the visit to Ms. Dolores's NGO, and also at the daycare center in East Side Heights, where she had been selected for the stadium event. At the daycare center, Emily reconnected with children she knew from before. Some were in the same difficult conditions she had gone through: old clothes, torn shoes, stomachs rumbling with hunger. But others had achieved some improvement in their lives through the daycare programs. "Em, you look different," shouted little Pete, a boy her age who had always played with her in the old days. "Your clothes are pretty, and you're taller." "That's because I eat every day now, Pete. But look, I brought something for you all." Emily opened a large backpack and took out dozens of colorful books, educational games, and school supplies. "Mr. Roberts said you can keep all of this." The children were excited about the gifts, but Emily noticed that many had the same expression she used to have: hopeful eyes, but tired. Big hearts, but hurt by the lack of opportunities. "Aunt Connie," called Emily, addressing the daycare coordinator, "can I say something to the children?" "Of course, my child. They adore you." Emily positioned herself in the center of the group of children, as she had done in the school auditorium. "Guys, I want to tell you that it is possible to improve your life, but it's not by waiting for someone to come solve our problems. It's by doing our part, studying when there's opportunity, helping those in need, and believing that good things can happen." A small girl about 5 years old raised her hand. "Em, how do we help someone if we have nothing to give?" The question deeply touched Emily. "You know, Julia, we always have something. A smile, a hug, a kind word. Sometimes the person doesn't need money or food. Sometimes they just need to know that someone cares about them." After the visit to the daycare center on the way back home, Robert asked Emily, "So what did you think about seeing your old friends?" "I felt sad, Mr. Robert. They're still going through the same difficulties I went through. It seems unfair that I'm doing well and they're still suffering. Emily, you can't save everyone, but you can do your part, and you're already doing that. But I wanted to do more. Much more." Robert smiled. "Patience, little one. You have a whole life ahead of you to help people. For now, keep studying, keep growing, and keep being that generous person that you are. The rest will happen naturally." That night, Emily wrote in her new diary, a gift from Marina. "Today I understood that it's not enough for us to improve our own lives. We have to help others improve too. I'll study hard so that one day I can have an organization bigger than Mr. Roberts. I want to help all the children in America who are going through what I went through." And so, at 8 years old, Emily had discovered not only the power of helping, but also the responsibility that comes with that power. Her story was just beginning. The documentary, The Girl with the Magic Ticket, aired on a Thursday night and caused an impact that not even the PBS journalist had predicted. In less than 24 hours, The video was being shared on all social networks, WhatsApp groups, and educational pages. The phone at St. Benedict Academy wouldn't stop ringing. Emily was at school when Principal Helen called her to her office. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something very important." "Did I do something wrong, Principal?" "Quite the contrary. My dear, your documentary has had an extraordinary impact. We're receiving calls from schools all over America asking for you to go tell your story there. We have invitations from Illinois, New York, California, Texas, Florida." Emily's eyes widened. "Can I really go?" "Well, that's a decision that needs to be made together with your grandmother and Mr. Robert. But I want you to know that your story is inspiring thousands of children across the entire country." That afternoon at home, Grandma Grace was watching the news when a story about donations to the Eastside Heights Daycare Center caught her attention. "Little one, come see." This? On television, Aunt Connie appeared smiling, surrounded by boxes and more boxes of donations. After Emily's story was shown on TV, donations began to arrive from all over the country. Food, clothes, school supplies, toys. We've never seen anything like it. And the most beautiful thing is that many children are sending their own savings, saying they want to help just like Emily helped. Emily was moved watching the report. "Grandma, look how many people are helping. All this because of that ticket story." "No, little one. All this because of your good heart. The ticket story was just the way to show the world who you really are." On the weekend, Robert organized a special lunch at his house to celebrate the success of the documentary. It was an elegant mansion in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, with immense gardens, a swimming pool, and a beautiful view of the city. Emily and Grandma Grace arrived a bit intimidated by the size and sophistication of the place. "Make yourselves at home, your family," said Carla, Robert's wife, receiving them at the door. "Gabriel is crazy to show his room to Emily." During lunch, served by uniformed staff at a huge solid wood table, Robert made an important announcement. "Emily, Miss Grace, you know I consider you family, so I want to share a decision I've made. I'm going to create a special fund at the Hope Institute called the Emily Wilson Fund. It will be specifically intended to help children who, like Emily, demonstrate generosity and potential, but don't have the financial conditions to develop their talents." Emily almost choked on her juice. "A fund with my name?" "Exactly. And I want you to be our junior consultant. When we have candidates to receive help, you'll help us choose who really needs and deserves it." "But I'm just a child. How will I know how to choose, right?" "Emily," intervened Carla, "you made the most correct choice of your life when you were 7 years old. I think you can trust your heart to help other children too." Gabriel, who had been quiet until then playing with a toy car, got up from his chair. "Emily, can I say something?" "Of course, Gabriel." "My dad said I was going to die if I didn't have the surgery. You saved me. Now I want to help save other children too. Can I participate in the fund with you?" Robert and Carla looked at each other, moved. "How about you two be the junior advisors of the Institute?" suggested Robert. "I accept," shouted Emily and Gabriel at the same time. In the following weeks, Emily's life transformed even more. She began to receive letters from children all over America. Some told stories similar to hers, others asked for advice, and many simply wanted to thank her for the inspiration they had received. One letter in particular moved her deeply. It was from a girl named Anna Caroline from Miami, Florida. "Hi, Emily. My name is Anna Caroline. I'm 9 years old, and I watched your documentary with my teacher. I wanted to tell you that I also did something similar to what you did. At my school, there was a new girl who didn't have school supplies. All the boys made fun of her, but I remembered your story and decided to share my notebooks with her. Now we're best friends, and she's doing very well in her classes. Thank you for teaching me that helping is more important than having." Emily showed the letter to Grandma Grace. "Grandma, look, Anna Caroline helped a classmate because of my story." "That's what's beautiful, little one. When we do good, we don't know how far it will go. It's like throwing a pebble in the water. It makes waves that go far, far, far away." Emily's first trip to tell her story outside of Chicago was to a school in Columbus, Ohio. Robert accompanied her, along with Gabriel, who had become her inseparable partner in these presentations. The event was held in a packed gymnasium, with More than 1,000 people. "Everyone, I want to introduce you to my friend Gabriel," said Emily during her speech. "He's the boy I helped that day at the stadium. Gabriel, do you want to tell how you are today?" Gabriel went up on stage, a little shy but smiling. "Hi, everyone. I'm cured, strong, and very happy. Emily saved me. But do you know what's the coolest thing? Now the two of us together are saving other children through the Hope Institute." The audience was ecstatic. Children screamed, parents stood and applauded, teachers were moved. But what touched Emily most was seeing in the front row a girl of about 8 years old who was crying, hiding behind her mother. After the presentation, Emily approached the girl. "Hi, what's your name?" "Beatrice," answered the mother for her daughter, who was too shy to speak. "She was very moved by your story." "Beatrice, do you want to talk with me?" Emily knelt to the girl's height. I also help people, but nobody ever knew," whispered Beatrice. "What do you mean?" "On my street there's an old man who doesn't have a family. Every day I take a small plate of food to him, but I don't tell anyone because I'm embarrassed." Emily smiled. "Beatrice, you don't need to be embarrassed about doing good. That's the most beautiful thing in the world. And you know something? You're very brave." "You think so?" "I'm sure someone who takes care of an old man every day without expecting anything in return has a giant heart." Beatrice's mother was listening to the conversation with watery eyes. "Emily, thank you very much. My daughter has always been like this, but thought nobody would understand. Now she knows she's not alone. There are a lot of people all over America doing good things every day." On the flight back to Chicago, Robert commented to Emily, "Did you notice how that girl Beatrice opened up when you talked to her?" "I noticed. She just needed to know that she wasn't strange for liking to help." "Emily, you have a very special gift. You can connect with children in a way that few adults can. I know you're still young, but I can already imagine what you'll become when you grow up." "What do you think I'll become?" "A leader. Someone who will change the lives of thousands of people." That night at home, Emily wrote in her diary, "Today I met Beatrice in Columbus. She reminded me that there are many children around the world doing good things without anyone knowing. I think my job is not just to help those in need, but also to show these children that they're not alone." A month later, Emily received news that left her speechless. Principal Helen called her to her office again, this time accompanied by Robert and an elegant woman she didn't know. "Emily, I want to introduce you to Dr. Fernanda Oliver from the American Academy of Philanthropy." "Pleased to meet you, Emily. I came here to make a very special invitation." "What invitation?" "We want to award you the Medal of Honor for Children's Philanthropic Merit. It's the first time in history that a child receives this medal." Emily looked at Robert, then at the principal, trying to process the information. "A medal? For me?" "Yes, for you. The ceremony will be in Washington, D.C., in the presence of authorities from across the country. Your story has inspired not only children but also adults to practice more acts of generosity." "And can I bring my grandma and my friends?" Dr. Fernanda laughed. "Of course, this is an honor for the entire country, not just for you." That afternoon, when she arrived home, Emily ran to tell the news to Grandma Grace, who was watering the plants in the garden. "Grandma, I'm going to receive a medal in Washington, D.C. "A medal? My little granddaughter is going to become a heroine." "Grandma, do you think my parents would be proud if they were here?" Grandma Grace stopped watering the plants and hugged her granddaughter tightly. My love, your parents are watching everything from above, and I'm sure they're being the proudest parents in the universe." But Emily didn't know that an even bigger surprise awaited her at the ceremony in Washington, D.C., a surprise that would change her understanding about her own story and about the mystery that had always existed around her parents' disappearance. The ceremony in Washington, D.C. would be held at the White House, a place Emily had only seen in photographs in history books. When she, Grandma Grace, Robert, Carla, and Gabriel arrived in the nation's capital, they were received with state honors. Emily wore an elegant white dress that Carla had specially chosen for the occasion, and for the first time in her life, she felt like a real princess. "Little one, look where we've arrived," whispered Grandma Grace, impressed with the grandeur of the palace. "From East Side Heights to here. It's like a dream. Grandma, it still feels like I'm going to wake up at any moment and be back in our old little house." The grand hall was full of personalities. ministers, governors, philanthropic business people, NGO presidents, and dozens of journalists. But what caught Emily's attention most was an elegant couple, approximately 40 years old, who were observing her from afar with a strange expression on their faces. The woman had brown hair like hers, and the man had the same large, expressive eyes. "Robert, who are those people over there?" asked Emily, discreetly pointing to the couple. Robert followed the girl's gaze, and his expression completely changed. He turned pale, nervous, and stammered, I need to talk to you, Emily, but after the ceremony, okay?" Before she could ask more questions, Dr. Fernanda went up to the main stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to honor an extraordinary girl who, at 7 years old, taught us that generosity doesn't depend on age or financial conditions, but rather on the purity of the heart." Emily was called to the stage to warm applause. When she passed through the audience, she noticed that the mysterious couple was silently crying, embracing each other. The woman was holding a handkerchief and continuously wiping her eyes. "Emily Wilson," continued Dr. Fernanda, "your act of donating your ticket to save the life of an unknown child has inspired millions of people throughout America. You created a wave of solidarity that reached the most remote places in our country. Therefore, on behalf of the American Academy of Philanthropy, I award you the Medal of Honor for Children's Philanthropic Merit." The medal was beautiful, golden, with reliefs representing hands extending to help. Emily received it with hands, trembling with emotion. "Thank you. This medal is not just mine, it belongs to all the children in America who do good every day, even when no one is watching." More applause echoed through the hall. But when Emily came down from the stage, the unknown couple approached her. The woman knelt down to her height with tears running down her face. "Emily, my daughter?" Emily was confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I think you're mistaken. I'm not." "My name is Lucy Wilson. This is Edward Wilson. We are your parents." Emily's world stopped. The sound of the hall disappeared. The people around became blurred, and she could only hear the accelerated beats of her own heart. "My parents, but you left when I was little." Edward knelt beside his wife. "Emily, we never left by our own choice. We are doctors. We work for an international humanitarian aid organization. 9 years ago, we were sent on an emergency mission to Africa to care for victims of an epidemic. It was supposed to be temporary, just 6 months." "But what happened?" Emily's voice came out like a thread. Lucy gently held her daughter's hands. "A civil war broke out in the country where we were. Communications were cut off, airports closed, and we were trapped there for almost 8 years. We tried everything to return, to send news, but it was impossible." "Did Grandma know this?" asked Emily, looking at Grandma Grace, who was approaching, with tears in her eyes. "I knew, little one. Your parents sent letters whenever they could, but you were so young and the situation was so uncertain. I thought it better not to create hopes that might not come true." Edward continued the explanation. "We managed to leave Africa 3 months ago. We've spent this time looking for you, trying to understand how your life was going. That's when we saw the documentary on television. We couldn't believe that our daughter had become this wonderful person. But why didn't you come look for me before the ceremony?" Lucy smiled through her tears. "Because we wanted to be sure it was the right moment. You were living a happy life with people who love you. We didn't want to cause confusion or suffering. We came today just to see you receive this well-deserved honor, and for you to decide if you want to get to know us better." Emily looked at Robert, who approached the group. "Mr. Robert, did you know? I found out a week ago when they contacted me. Emily, I want you to know that regardless of what you decide, you will always be part of my family. But these are your real parents, and they love you very much." Gabriel appeared beside Robert. "Emily, what's happening?" "Gabriel, these are my parents. They hadn't disappeared, and they were saving lives in another country." The boy looked at Lucy and Edward, then at Emily. "You mean they're doctors, just like Dr. Montgomery, who saved me?" Edward smiled. "Yes, we are doctors, and we were very moved to learn that our daughter saved you, Gabriel." Emily sat on a nearby chair, trying to process all of that. "So you save children around the world?" We do, answered Lucy, and we discovered that our daughter also saves children, each in her own way. And now? What will happen? Edward and Lucy looked at each other. Emily, we want to be part of your life if you want, but we understand that you already have a family that loves you. We don't want to change anything that's working well. Grandma Grace approached the couple. Lucy, Edward, you are her parents. I always knew that one day you would return. Emily has room in her heart to love everyone. You, me, Robert, Carla, Gabriel. This girl has a heart that can fit the whole world. At that moment, Emily had an idea that excited her. Can I make a proposal to you? Of course, my daughter, said Lucy. What if we work together? You save children with medicine, I save children by inspiring them to be generous. Robert saves children with his institute. We can be a family of saviors. Edward laughed and hugged his daughter. Emily, you just had the best idea in the world. Robert joined the hug. A family of saviors. I like that. Gabriel also entered the circle. I want to be a savior too. You already are, Gabriel, said Emily. Everyone here already is. 6 months later, the story had taken on even greater proportions. Lucy and Edward joined the Hope Institute as medical directors, bringing the international experience they had. Emily continued studying at St. Benedict Academy, but now also actively participated in institute projects. Grandma Grace, with her health completely recovered thanks to the medical plan, became the coordinator of the Volunteer Grandmothers Program, teaching other elderly women to care for children in vulnerable situations. Gabriel, now completely cured and full of energy, had become Emily's best friend and her official partner in presentations across the country. On a sunny Sunday, the whole family was gathered at Robert's house for a barbecue. Emily, now 9 years old, was playing in the garden with Gabriel when Lucy approached. Em, can I tell you a secret? Sure, Mom. You know what makes me most proud of you? It's not the fact that you helped Gabriel, or that you received a medal, or that you're inspiring children all over America. Then what is it? It's the fact that you became this wonderful person even when you thought you didn't have parents, even going through difficulties, even having little. That shows that the goodness was inside you all along. Emily smiled and showed Gabriel's bracelet, which she still wore every day. Mom, can I tell you a secret too? Yes. When I gave my ticket to Mr. Robert that day, I wasn't thinking about becoming famous or winning a medal or finding you. I was just thinking that that boy needed it more than I did, but look at everything that happened because of that. And what did you learn from that? I learned that when we do good without wanting anything in return, the universe conspires to give back in a way we never imagined. I wanted to enter a stadium, and I ended up gaining an entire family. Edward, who had heard the conversation, joined the two. Emily, do you want to know something? You didn't gain a family. You reunited a family that always existed, but was scattered around the world. At that moment, Robert appeared with exciting news. Everyone, I just received a call. The Emily Wilson Fund has already helped more than 1,000 children throughout America, and there's more. We received a proposal to expand the project to other countries in Latin America. Really, shouted Emily. Really, your story has crossed borders, little one. There are children in Mexico, in Brazil, in Argentina doing good things inspired by your example. Gabriel ran up to them. Emily, does that mean we're going to travel to other countries? If our parents let us, said Emily, looking hopefully at Lucy and Edward. Of course we do, answered Lucy. In fact, it would be an honor to accompany you on this mission. Grandma Grace, who was observing the scene from the porch, smiled contentedly. She remembered the little granddaughter who woke up early in that humble house in East Side Heights, dreaming of a ticket that would change her life. She never imagined that ticket would really change not only Emily's life, but the lives of thousands of people. Grandma, called Emily, come here. Let's take a photo of the whole family of saviors. As everyone organized for the photo, Emily held Gabriel's bracelet tightly and thought about how surprising life was. 2 years ago, she was a poor girl who dreamed of meeting important people. Now she was a girl who had become important to many people, but the most beautiful thing of all was knowing that none of it would have happened if she hadn't learned from an early age that a generous heart is the greatest treasure anyone can have. "Everyone ready?" asked Robert, holding the camera. "Ready!" they all shouted together. And in that camera click, the image of a family that formed not by blood ties, but by bonds of love, generosity, and the desire to do good, was forever recorded. Years later, when Emily would become a renowned international philanthropist, she would always say that her greatest achievement was not the awards, nor the honors, nor the worldwide recognition. Her greatest achievement was having discovered at 7 years old that a small heart can hold a giant love, and that sometimes to find your family, you first need to save someone else's family. Gabriel's hospital bracelet, framed next to the original ticket at the headquarters of the Hope Institute, continued to inspire visitors from all over the world. On the plaque below the two objects, a quote from Emily: "When you give without expecting anything in return, you receive much more than you could imagine." Dear listeners, we hope that Emily and Gabriel's story has deeply touched your hearts. This narrative shows us that true generosity knows no age, social class, or circumstances. As Emily discovered at 7 years old, when we offer our best to someone in need, the universe conspires to give back to us in ways we could never imagine. If this story has inspired you as much as it inspired us in telling it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to follow more moving stories that celebrate human kindness. Leave your like to help us bring these messages of hope to even more people, and share in the comments your own experiences of generosity. You have incredible stories to tell, and we'd love to hear them. Together we can create a chain of goodness that